Anakin Skywalker is now a Mortis god, and the Ahsoka show proves it. I know it sounds crazy, but watch this video. I'm going to explain all the different teases and hints, including how this image of Anakin Skywalker as a Force ghost is maybe one of the biggest visual clues ever that he is indeed the father of the Mortis gods. Oh yeah, this is pretty freaking bananas. Ties into all the Abeloth stuff. Oh my goodness, here we go. Okay, so the first clue of Anakin being the father and a Mortis god actually comes into episode 5 when Anakin is teaching his lesson to Ahsoka. Anakin is able to use the dark side and the light side of the Force, and he's even able to pull himself back from the brink of darkness, becoming Anakin on the light side at the end of the lesson. And that's dope, man. And it shows that he can utilize both sides of the Force. But it is even more of a clue that the world between worlds is involved at all. Something I don't see a lot of people talking about is how Mortis itself is actually in the world between worlds, or at least there's a huge visual correlation. A lot of the design on the floor in Mortis looks like the world between world design, and there are even these circles with flames that sort of line the path to the Father that look just like the portals in the world between worlds. And without getting too sweaty and nerdy, let me just explain that I think the world between worlds actually exists as a nexus point between the world of the living and the world of the dead, the world between the worlds. And this is because it is in the lore of Star Wars that the living Force is created by all living things in the world of the living, and all of that flows into the cosmic Force when those living things die or pass on. But just like the Force ghosts can return from the cosmic Force back into the world of the living, all Force energy flows from that world of the cosmic Force back in to the world of the living. And I think that's why it's called the world between worlds. So the very fact that Anakin is in this place and seemingly can control it is a massive clue that he has ascended far beyond being a Jedi or being a Sith, and has now become the Father, one of the ones who can actually hold the Force in perfect balance. And this is of course foreshadowed when we see Anakin go to Mortis and talk to the Father, talking about how he thinks the Father is a Sith Lord. The Father corrects him, "I'm not a Jedi, I'm not a Sith, something beyond that, just like you." And so many Star Wars fans, including myself, already thought Anakin was being set up as the Father after episode 5 of Ahsoka, but then we had the finale and there's like a ton more evidence about it. The clues in episode 8 are incredible, starting off with Baylan standing on a statue of the Mortis gods, looking at something glowing atop a mountain or a temple in the distance. Now, although this does look a lot like the temple that was on Mortis, where Anakin then found the Father, and some fans believe that Peridea actually is Mortis, I think Mortis was modeled after Peridea, which was the original homeworld of the Ones or the Mortis gods, because that's the way it works in Legends. And when I say the Legends stories, what I'm really talking about is the Fate of the Jedi series of novels, which I'm currently going through right now. But as I've been saying in other videos and streams, the thing that's crazy about the lore for the Ones or the Mortis gods, and even the lore of Abeloth, is that it was formed alongside Dave Filoni, because Dave was establishing Mortis in the Clone Wars, and Dave and the writers of the Fate of the Jedi books actually worked together to make it all one continuous canon. And in that story, the Ones come from a planet where they were at peace and they were hanging out, and then after Abeloth is corrupted on that planet, they leave their homeworld and go to Mortis. So the statues being there is a massive visual clue that there's something crazy cosmic going on, and I believe an indication that Peridea is the original homeworld of the Ones. This is basically Dave winking at us and saying, yes, you do get it if you're onto this sort of stuff. These are the visual clues. There's something really crazy and cosmic going on here on Peridea. The next major clue about Anakin being a Force god comes from the Morai, that little white owl that we see at the end of Ahsoka episode 8. And most of you already know this, but Morai is like a visual representation of the daughter, one of the Mortis gods. And what happens in Clone Wars is that Ahsoka is actually killed while on Mortis, but then the father uses Anakin to do a life essence transfer to bring Ahsoka back to life. And this kind of like kills the daughter or stops her from being in some way. And ever since that moment, Ahsoka sees Morai, that representative, that spirit guide, which represents the daughter. Morai is incredibly important. Morai is in the world between worlds. When Ezra goes there, Ezra recognizes Morai, and that owl actually takes Ezra in front of the portal where he then sees Ahsoka fighting Vader and pulls Ahsoka out of that fight, saving her life. Morai represents cosmic destiny. And the fact that we see that owl is an indication to us that something really crazy involving the Mortis gods is going on Peridea. And interestingly, after seeing Morai, Ahsoka tells Sabine that Ezra is where he needs to be, and so are we. Ahsoka now realizes that she is supposed to be on Peridea. Now, another thing that I want to talk about, which really solidifies that all of this is having to do with the Mortis gods, and you're basically looking at Anakin as the father, has to do with a scene that was cut from episode 5. In an older version of these scenes with Anakin and Ahsoka in the world between worlds, Anakin was going to show Ahsoka alternate realities, perhaps even through some of the portals like we saw in Star Wars Rebels. The most famous of these scenes was supposed to be an alternate version of the fight on Mustafar, where if Ahsoka had stayed at the Jedi Order, Anakin still would have turned, and she would have replaced Obi-Wan to be the one to defeat him on Mustafar and turn him into Darth Vader. Because regardless of how she would have changed, Anakin was destined to follow the dark side. That was destined to happen. But another scene was also cut, which would have showed an alternate reality in which Ahsoka killed Thrawn. Therefore, Ezra never had to use the Purgles and get trapped on Peridea. And the point of that scene was supposed to show that regardless of what happened, Ahsoka was going to come to this moment and follow her destiny to Peridea. But why would it be Ahsoka's destiny to go to Peridea unless it was involving the Mortis gods and her cosmic destiny as the daughter? But now I want to talk to you about the last shot of the Ahsoka show, at least in season 1, and that's that Force Ghost shot of Anakin Skywalker. And to me, this shot completely solidifies that Anakin is indeed the father. I remember when I first saw this scene, I thought just something was off in the way that Anakin was smiling. And if you look at his face, it truly appears as though half of his face is smiling and the other half is just giving a slight grin and perhaps even a look that is inscrutable. You can also notice that the side of his face that seems to be smiling is bathed in light, and the side of his face that maybe is scowling is in shadow. And what's interesting is if you go back to the shot with Baylan standing on the statue of the father's face is the exact same way, with one side of it being bathed in light and the other side bathed in shadow. I think this is a massive visual clue that Filoni put right in front of us to get us to understand that Anakin, there and now, as a Force ghost, is the father. He has finally embraced his destiny to be that version of the father, the one, and he's holding the Force in balance. And whatever's going on with Baylan and him being called by what I strongly feel is Abeloth, it is his duty as the father to now bring the daughter and perhaps even the son in Baylan to Peridea and to try to prevent Abeloth from being freed and reintroducing chaos into the known galaxy. I know it sounds crazy, but I just put forward all this evidence. I gotta know, what do you guys think about this? Do you agree that that's what Dave is showing us and that Anakin is the father? Or do you think he's maybe the son? Or do you think he's just a Force ghost smiling at his apprentice? And if you do believe that, why does his smile look so much different than the other smiles we've seen of Anakin? Why did he look so different? I've got more videos to come about Abeloth and Ahsoka in the future of Star Wars, so stay tuned for that. And as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.